NASCAR Fantasy rolls into Las Vegas as we are rolling the dice here in week number 3. Let's see what Vegas thinks of the NASCAR Cup Series race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway and much more on this episode of Fantasy Friday. Alright, so before we settle in for Las Vegas, we got to talk a little bit about Atlanta this past weekend and the fantasy day that we had. So it was our second Super Speedway race kind of the year. Certainly was a little bit more predictable than, say, Daytona has been in the past. And so here's our top 10 standings up here. We'll go ahead and talk through them, but real quick, I want to give a quick shout out to Patrick, aka Keystone Guy, who went and won the fantasy league last week. He ended up actually forgetting to set a lineup for Daytona, but came home with the number 1 spot last week and boosts himself up into the points, and potentially, given a week or two, he could end up inside this top 10 before too long. But I wanted to give him a quick shout out for winning the week. I had another abysmal day, and but hey, I'm still ahead of Patrick in points. But so if you guys want to join, link in the description. We'll get you into the fantasy league. And again, there's still plenty of time. We've got a long way to go before the end of the regular season, and even then for the playoffs, long way to go. But Eric Anderson still holds the points lead over Shadowhawk by about 30 points or so, about 30-40 points or so. You got Amy in third, fourth is Dave, and then rounding out your top 5 is Mike. Then you got Steve, who's in sixth. Seventh is eSneed95. Daryl Clark rounds out the 8th position. 9th goes to Fusion Racing. And the number 10 spot this week is currently held by Warrior. So, congratulations to you guys for being inside that top top 10 in points. And I hope to join you guys soon. But let's get ready for some Las Vegas racing. And we'll start off by talking about some of the favorites for the race win here. So, now, up over on the side of the board, I have gone and put up the kind of your perennial favorites, your guys that are at the top of the odds boards, and I do disagree with this list a little bit. I don't see any reason why Kyle Larson should be a favorite over, say, William Byron or Kyle Busch here. Maybe a slight favorite, but certainly not twice as good a pick, according to Vegas, so I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll go out here on Sunday and see Kyle Larson lead all 267 laps or however many laps the race is. But I don't think Kyle Larson is going to be that much of a magic must start type of guy. I think he's definitely a good pick, and certainly I don't think anybody should be leaving him off rosters this week. But if you did, I wouldn't be completely against it, especially if you used him at, say, Daytona and or Atlanta, which, by the way, I warned you guys not to do. But Kyle Busch, William Byron at plus 900, again, aside from the number, I think those two being in the top 3 as well, absolutely justified, no real problem there. Ryan Blaney and Ross Chastain might be a little high, although Chastain was competitive here in the recent past. And Ryan Blaney is your defending series champion. I just don't know if I would put Blaney as the top Penske right now. I think Logano might be a little bit better than Ryan Blaney, although the gap in terms of odds between the two is only a 100-point swing, so maybe it isn't that big of a deal, but I would be a little bit worried. I wouldn't want to probably put all the chips on the Ryan Blaney table, especially at this track. Over, say, Logano, if you're going to start a Penske. Logano has a track record of winning here, and it's his sponsor's race, so there's that little bit extra bragging rights for the team to try and get the Pennzoil car into Pennzoil Victory Lane and the Pennzoil 400, but yeah. Then you got a couple of the Toyotas, and this is where I really want to kind of hammer down the narrative. This is going to be, I think, a Chevy versus Toyota matchup at the front. Again, you might see a Joey Logano get in the mix, but I think you're only going to see one or two Fords maybe in the mix, and I think you're going to see a lot of Toyota and a lot of Chevy near the front of the field. I would not be surprised to see Christopher Bell inside the top 5 for most, if not the entire day. This track tends to appeal to dirt drivers like Christopher Bell, like Tyler Reddick. So, certainly would not be opposed to seeing you guys go ahead and use Christopher Bell in your lineups. Denny Hamlin, he's a very solid driver. Could come home with a pretty decent finish. Yeah, the Toyota's definitely looking fast. Again, Logano at 1100 there. Reddick inside the top 10 on the odds. I think those are all very good odds. And then you got Martin Truex Jr., who was the last driver to sneak into that top 10. And it was actually a tie for 10th with Brad Keselowski. Gave Martin Truex Jr. the edge because I wanted to mention the race that the first race where he swept the stages and the race at Las Vegas to start off his historic season back in 2017, where he went and won both stages and the race at Las Vegas en route to a dominating season, which ended in Martin Truex Jr. and Furniture Row Racing hoisting the championship trophy back in 2017. So this is where it all started for Martin Truex Jr. on that magical season, and potentially this could be another start to a season for Martin Truex Jr. as he tries to go again for one more championship. So those are your kind of top 10 favorites. I definitely think most of your lineup should probably come from this list, although there are a couple of notable exceptions that we will get to on this next page. But hopefully you guys from this top 10 can hopefully get an idea as to who you guys want to use in your lineups going forward. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull up 10 more drivers that are a little bit further down the odds sheet, but I still wanted to mention them as kind of dark horse picks that would have gotten overlooked if you only looked at the top 10. So, now I've got that list over there, and we can start right at the top with Chase Elliott and Alex Bowman. Again, I said I think it's going to be a Chevy versus Toyota. I think it's going to be a Hendrick versus Toyota battle. Again, I think Kyle Busch and Joey Logano could be the outliers to a Hendrick versus Toyota type of day, but I think Hendrick, they've been very strong at this race basically ever since the pandemic hit. This race has been won by either Hendrick drivers and or Joey Logano, I think, every single year. So, certainly think that all 4 Hendrick drivers are definitely in play this weekend. Depending on how risky you want to be with using up Hendrick drivers early on. But, again, this is a solid race where I would say they are a very good value pick. Then you got Bubba Wallace, who finished top 5 in this race 1 year ago, and he's currently riding a back-to-back top 5 streak where he is currently the only driver on pace to potentially even get a top 10s in both the first 3 or in all 3 of the first 3 races. But after 2 top 5s in a row and going into a track where he's got a top 5 last week, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't at least consider him for your lineup this week. Then you got a couple of drivers who, especially based on last week, got boosted up the odds and I think are fair value picks to potentially go ahead and use. Again, Ross Chastain was really good here a couple years ago, and potentially he could pass some of that information along to his teammate Daniel Suarez, who also is just involved in one of the craziest finishes in NASCAR history 1 week ago. I didn't get a chance to talk about that one nearly as much as I wanted to, just because life got busy this week. But, Daniel Suarez is winning that one last week and potentially could be in position for another good run here on another 1.5 miles. Austin Cindric, he won a stage last week. I figured I should shout him out as well as a potential driver that we are very much, I think everybody is expecting him to have a bit of a bounce back, and it's kind of hard to imagine him going any further back on the list of odds, so Cindric at 6,500, it's a long shot, but hey, if it works out, you could look like a genius. Speaking of looking like a genius, if you had Mike McDowell on the front row for 2 races in a row, not driving for front row for 2 races in a row, but actually sitting on the front row of the NASCAR Cup Series races for 2 weeks in a row, including his first ever pole position, you probably would be considered either an idiot or a genius, depending on when someone was saying it. If they said it beforehand, they would probably have called you an idiot. If they were talking to you about it afterwards, they probably would have called you a genius. So, figured you could shout out that one. Mike McDowell. He and Eric Jones are both on this list for the same reason. Eric Jones and Mike McDowell both having significant team changes here in the offseason, despite not actually changing teams. Obviously, Eric Jones's team went from from a Tier 3 Chevy team to a Tier 1 to 2 Toyota team, getting a lot more resources from the manufacturer themselves, especially where Toyota is not spread nearly as thin as Ford or Chevy are on the depth chart. So now they're getting better equipment, and it could lead to some improvement on the 1.5-mile packages, and we've yet to see them run a 1.5 mile with the new car. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think that Eric Jones could be a good value pick. And Mike McDowell going, him and that front row motorsports team going from the RFK alliance that they've been a part of for years and years, to now having a Penske alliance and being one of the top Ford teams in the garage. I think that could provide some good value, and Mike McDowell could be right up there with Cindric, Blaney, and Logano. If those drivers find their way to the front, I think Mike McDowell could be a part of that. Speaking of a Ford driver who's not under that Penske umbrella, though, Chase Briscoe starts off this kind of bottom 3 where I was basically just throwing darts at a dartboard and hoping something sticks. I think Briscoe looks like the best Stewart-Haas driver through the first 2 races of the season, although granted the penalties to both Ryan Preece and Noah Gragson were debilitating for those 2 drivers. I think Briscoe is probably the best driver at that team right now. And realistically, I could see Briscoe, if all goes well and the Stewart-Haas Fords are actually better than they looked in at the plate tracks the last 2 weeks, you might see something. And again, he has that dirt racing background that seems to benefit at Las Vegas. So again, I would say he's a risky pick, but I still included him. I think he's the top Stewart-Haas driver, so had to include him. And then you got 2 drivers for Spire Motorsports, who is a team that appears to be massively on the rise, although we have not gotten a chance to see them again this season at a non-super speedway track, which, again, this week will definitely help set the baseline for how these drivers are going to do at, say, this track, Kansas, Charlotte, the many 1.5 milers on the schedule, and most of those tracks, especially this one and Kansas, both getting 2 dates a year. That could definitely provide a baseline there. Hocevar also having a bit of that dirt background, so the slip sliding nature, he could very well find himself in a groove. He looked very good at the end of last year driving for the 42 team when Noah Gragson was suspended. So again, he looks solid, but I just don't know if he's gonna be worth the pick compared to what you could get for value further up the board. And Corey LaJoie, a solid veteran driver driving that equipment, that if there is something in the equipment, he will find it. So, again, these bottom 3 are mainly just throwing stuff at a board and hoping something sticks. But, man, if Corey LaJoie gets a top 5 this week, I think it'll justify him being on this list here. And yeah, I'm gonna go assemble my roster though. Hopefully you guys can hopefully go ahead and let me know in the description if you guys, or in the comment section down below who you guys think I may be am overlooking, or who maybe I'm over hyping going into this race. Also, let me know who you guys are thinking about using in your own personal lineups. Again, quick reminder that link in the description will, the top link will take you to our NASCAR heat, or not our NASCAR heat, but our NASCAR Fantasy League that we run with the fans, so that you guys can be a part of that roster at the beginning when we go ahead and announce the points. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and create my roster, and I will go ahead and I will see you guys in just 1 second once I have my roster built, and we will go ahead and talk about it. So I've gone and put together my lineup. I know there's at least one adjustment I might make after qualifying, similar to last week where I said no, the LaJoie spot would end up becoming whoever the pole sitter was. I was very happy. Meant I got to put Michael McDowell in my lineup last week, but over here on the side of the board, I have gone and put up my lineup, and I currently have Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Alex Bowman, and Christopher Bell as my 6 drivers. As I said, Byron, Busch, and Larson, I think those should be 3 pretty close to universal picks here for the for this weekend. Again, maybe you want to substitute 1 or 2 of them out, depending on where you are on uses with them. As you can see, I've used both Byron and Busch once. I haven't used Kyle Larson at all yet, so this is a very good week for me to go ahead and just burn a use on Larson, and I feel like the risk is worth the reward for Byron and Kyle Busch both being in the lineup. Worst case scenario, I can throw one of them in the garage to save the use on them. But, say again, I'm expecting big things from them. Bowman and Bell, those were kind of some kind of flavor picks. Both are experienced dirt racers, and both have had some level of success either on at the Cup Series recently, with Christopher Bell being in the championship for the last 2 years, and again I think his dirt success will lead to him being able to figure out this Las Vegas track. Or Alex Bowman, who has previously won a race at LasVegasMotorSpeedway who has actually won a race at Las Vegas in the recent past. But ultimately, again, Bowman's slot actually might not be as secure. Also, Bubba Wallace is there. He got, again, 2 top 5s so far on the season, and he's on pace for potentially a third top 5 if he can just repeat what he did last year. So maybe the Bubba Wallace or Alex Bowman spots could get bumped out, especially in favor of, say, a Joey Logano. Because, again, I think if I'm going to replace somebody, I think Logano would be the one moving in. But I think a lot of that will end up having to depend on how qualifying goes tomorrow afternoon. But at the moment, that's my lineup, and those are the guys I'm going to be going with. So, again, let me know who you guys have in your lineups for this upcoming race at Las Vegas. But until next time, I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the Truck Series race, because the trucks are racing at 9 p.m. tonight. Rajah Caruth just won the pole position for that one, so I'm excited to go see that. Then we got the Xfinity race at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and the NASCAR Cup Series at 3:30 Sunday afternoon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, if you guys are watching this day of release, check back on the channel later tonight for the NASCAR Truck Series stream. But until next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next video. Live stream, or whatever you decide to do with the rest of your day. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye!